Hey guys, it's MJ from Alta Love. How are you? So I'm getting through the monthly intuitive general readings. I just also like to share my little collective intuitions update around our ability to sort of more tangibly understand the paradigm, the global paradigm shift, and the different aspects of this mass awakening, quantum leap of our own evolution ultimately. So there's this amazing and positive, beautiful thing happening on the planet, and yet the polarity of that is like inside ourselves. It feels intense. It's really mega hardcore. And then also what I'm aware of is that, like, because there's so many veils that we're like lifting very quickly, I'm just wanting to share and describe maybe like pitfalls or certainly dogmatic distractions that limit us and create illusions that what I'm witnessing is like, especially with the younger generations, they're totally like woke to that. I taught a yoga class yesterday and had a young woman come to class who was really inspired. She's been practicing on and off for years, and she just had a big break. And she came up to me afterwards and was just like, "Thank you so much. You've inspired, my yoga practice again." I was starting to become really disillusioned, as in, like, the dogma of whomever she was practicing with, whatever community she was practicing with. And I totally get this, like the externalization of worship and the dogma of like, this is how to do yoga, and it's like, fuck, man, like, no. Yoga and spirituality is our heart. It's our own individual heart. Anytime we're externalizing our power, anytime we're giving our power to an industry standard like the Yoga Alliance, and there's no judgment. It's just addressing the social constructs that are ultimately limited to our human evolution, our common humanity, and our ability to rise in love and compassion. And this is actually really relevant to the planetary transits, to the collective shifts, via our outworking of the collective agreements. And certainly when it comes to like love and money, and self-worth, and I'm seeing a lot of like collective projections. And so I'm witnessing kind of collectives. It could just be one, like, so say a client or someone I'm working with, but it's always reflective with my own journey, in as far as having these experiences which elevate us, and then bottoming out to address the energy that limits us from actually manifesting it. And what's really coming up, especially if we're working at love and romance and desired commitment and longevity and all that kind of stuff, we're having to address like the big collective imprints. And I talk about this in the book, but now that I'm really doing it inside, I'm just like, it's like, it's quite like, it's uncomfortable, really uncomfortable. But I think we're getting to the other side of it, thank God. But like the projections around like all women are this, and how easily or quickly we women could get together and be like, men are yada yada, men are just this way. And I'm really bored of that language. I'm really tired of having to get into a conversation where somebody's like, and at the same time, I invite it because it's triggering my own healing, right? It's triggering, and especially those of us in this community, anything at this point for sure that we're addressing within self, it's part of our service. It's part of our, like, we addressing it in the self is actually, we addressing it within the self is then permeating the field. This is how I feel into, quantum shifting, as far as like with the awareness that we're accumulating and integrating and accelerating. Each shift that we're going through, it's like rippling out into the collective. It's not really worth like trying to mentally wrap our heads around it, because it's a feeling knowingness in the beingness that we are as we expand our awareness to permeate the field, be embodied as one Christ, one mind, one, yeah, one. And so this shifting that we're going through is really kind of icky and sticky, but the shit that it's addressing, hey Julie, hi Divine Sight, the shit that it's addressing is super, super important for our rising. Because you can imagine that we can't find those perfect relationships or find those soulmate clients if we're still having these weird underlying shitty beliefs that clump a whole bunch of people into one spot. And we've been talking about that, haven't we? Labels, definitions. Listen, men are da 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 da. And I'm like, I would prefer us not to have any label whatsoever, just presence in our beingness. Like, oh, who's this feeling? How's this relating? What's coming through us? How, and it's only because we're continuing to share and expand that we're reflecting back to one another a deeper understanding and a visceral understanding of how to heal. It's healing. It's feeling better. It's, in so many ways, it's just so simple, right? And yet, our kind of programmed mind wants to have us believe that it's all really complicated, and as in dogma. Oh no, you can't just be spiritual. You have to have a bunch of fucking rules to be spiritual. Or oh no, you can't just stretch and flow and get to know your body. You have to learn anatomy and kinesiology. You have to learn the kind of human quantifiable. Hi, Lukey. How are you? Oh, hi. Oh, I feel like blessed. Yeah, I don't know if that's made me feel really like heart love vibrashe for Luke. Yeah, the dogma of control. Essentially, okay, and then this is, yeah, the dogma of control. So increasingly, with the higher vibrations and the more rainbow crystalline children, the children who are already basically woke, and who totally get this stuff that we talk about, they're the ones that are really like standing down that dogmatic rule now, because it doesn't. There's just like they can't even let it hook into them. They're just like, the fuck, like that. I.e., that young woman who's probably like 10 or 15 years younger than me, who's just like, I just got completely disillusioned by the yoga community. And I was like, no shit, girlfriend, I know what you mean. And yet I see her as like, one of us, that she would be a beautiful yoga teacher. But for her, it was all about like, but you made it playful and fun. And I'm like, well, yeah, because I looked at ashram leaders and sort of gurus, and they were miserable fuckers. So I was just like, if that's the end goal, or if that's the result of all this spiritual work, I want nothing to do with it, right? And yet, to me, that hasn't been the result. The deeper I go within self, the more innocent and playful, and yet deep and knowing as well. So that's the polarity of all this work. It's that we are the depth and we are the darkness, and yet we are the light and we are the expanse of all that is. We are an infinite intelligent source of creation, and at the same time, we are nothing. Because it's all the space inside, in between, that makes up the projection of light that we see and are. Hi, Matthew. So, yeah, I feel like that's about it. So I guess it's just that aspects of awakening are continuously hitting up against the limitation. So people getting, try this, it ain't that. Try that, it ain't this. And so increasingly, in an accelerated way, we keep looping back to self. And then that makes me think of like how in my own personal reality, I'm really being asked to shed the rebel, the fight against the system. And how weird is this, that like I'm endeavoring to go into production for Unplug for Freedom, and somebody who's been in my field for a while has popped back up and basically been like, I've got this information, and it's essentially about how we, as the people, the innocent people on the planet, can basically take back our freedom from the banks, from the Federal Reserve, from when we had to when we did the sort of the soul contract to sell the soul birth certificate, the bond on the stock market. So that is all corrupt, right? And so increasingly there's like the pioneers who are totally 100% finding the physical way of people reclaiming, and then basically the banks owe us loads of money. Like legit. So he's popped back up, and then I'm going back at the end of August, early September. I have 1 month left in Devon, basically to conduct this series of interviews with this guy. And then I'll go into editing and all that kind of stuff and moving, but moving nowhere. Like, and in fact, that's part of it is I feel like I'm being pulled to the United States. Exactly, divine sight. Like, that's the thing of like giving, we are the deservingness. We all deserve to be here, and we're waking up to that, and the kind of shoddy corruption of it, and just being like, yeah, I reclaim my soul, and as I reclaim my soul, I'll take back my inheritance. Thank you. That you you dickheads kind of took from us covertly, you know? We are the majority. Exactly. And this is a huge piece, is that more people awaken, more of us reclaim, integrate. We're doing all this inner work, right? That inner work, and the way I see it, our emotional storm, the alchemy of that process is the reclamation of the soul. Yeah, and then we rise into the divine right of our inheritance, of our allowingness to be here. And then en masse, that's what is bringing in these people, places, things, environments that are going to allow us to reclaim it. And then that's essentially, think about pulling the pegs out. Eventually, it crumbles. But by the time that supposed chaos is occurring, then we are already embedded in our new paradigm. Right, exactly. So the majority, and yet we are that as well. And so and I can feel the relief of it. I can feel the relief of our letting go of the fight against the system, because we are that too, in essence. If we, on even some level, agreed to incarnate within this paradigm, we have chosen it on a soul level. And so even this idea of selling our soul or selling our stock or selling our bond, it is an agreement. And that's part of self-responsibility. And that's also part of reclaiming our soul and our divinity and our divine right here on the planet, is that we have to be responsible for it, to walk away from it, to be able to claim the freedom that we are and embody that. A lot of us have, by the way, done this already, even though you might not think you have. There's been sort of work done in the astral where you've already been, taking it back, which is partly how we're able to communicate and understand what we're all talking about, because it's still fairly, like, in as far as like numbers and en masse, there's still a fairly small amount of humans on the planet having this conversation. However, as the tipping points continue to, exactly, they took it by your consent. This is perhaps the cognitive dissonance, but also where, I don't know, it's only the ego that can't take responsibility for this. It's only my ego and my attachment to what I think my ego, whatever, projects and all that bullshit. But most of us aren't really running those programs anymore, so it's pretty easy for our heart to contain the totality, because we've chosen it on a soul level. So we're like, oh, right, okay. And at the same time, this sweetness of emancipation on a soul level is also rather radical as an incarnate, embodied experience on this planet, which is why we're all in co-creative agreement to this endeavoring, right? Yeah. The ego rebel, yeah. It's only part of the system. It's like, oh, well, but you are it. We perpetuate the system by fighting against it, right? Hey there, Jessica T. Okay, so veils are getting lifted, rising compassion. This is the increasing frequencies on the planet, benevolent soul energy coming through, rising the energies. This is lifting veils. We feel more compassion. We have a deeper awakened understanding of this whole thing. So we're falling away from the disillusionment of industry, and then breaking out of dogmatic control, which is part of the resonance field. So the more of us that are in our heart space, we are resonant. We're in resonant connection. There's very little mental grip on like, you're right or I'm wrong and what are you saying? I don't understand. It's like, feel the presence in our beingness, and then intuit it, like from within these I want to say like constellations, right? You have to step fully out of Babylon. Yes. And this is part of this next phase, this next leap, this next permissioning one another, break free. And I can, even though there's still lots of inner work happening, I can feel the increasing freedom of having shed it and let it go, and shed it and let it go, and then focusing only solely on the mission. Because yeah, I can't, it's sort of paradoxical to describe, but really, truly, truly, things like money have no, there's no grip anymore. There's no fear. There's no like trigger points. It's all flow. It's pure flow. And it has been for the last few years. This is part of the expression here, is like, it's been over 3.5 years that it's been like, you stay in that flow, right? You stay in that flow regardless of the circumstances. But once you bottom out, then you see it through. You see it through that gate. Then we're starting to uplift. Then we're starting to really elevate ourselves, because now we're in community. Now we're in dialogue. Now we're in a shared dialogue experience from within this paradigm shift community. Which means we're anchoring it, we're embedding it, we're living it, we're walking it. That sends that shockwave and ripple effects out, like beyond obviously what we can see. And that's pretty cool. And I gotta say, there is some seeds dropping in for me to come to the United States after Morocco, to do a little bit of a tour. There's quite a few of you over there, and it feels like that's where I'm being guided, because I, as of September, end of September, or October 1st, well, end of September, I'm leaving Devon. I'm letting go of the flat and putting my stuff into storage, and then there's been these like people saying, come here, do this, come here, do this. And so I'm like, okay, as in, I mean, that's really always what has happened in my life, me being like in these cycles and then being like, what is life? What do you want from me? And then things will come in and show me where to go. And it's all just in my personal journeying. What's happening is starting to get quite soulfully exciting for me, because in essence, like, the stuff that I share with you and what I do here now is going back to that 19-year-old girl who had those awakenings that totally fucked up her life. Or so you would think. And then that's part of connecting with all of you, is like, because of where we are all on our journey, we can really help and assist greater collective imprints, I want to say, or help a deepening understanding of the collective agreements that we carry. And that's to do with the representation of our kind of archetype in society. You know, teachers and moms and single moms and totally non-attached people and all different races and colors and backgrounds. So it's like, there will be figureheads that have a story that resonate with a mass, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of a mass, of an imprint, of a collective agreement. So that is single mom teachers. I'm like, that's all there is. Yeah, that are representative of a mass. And that's like when I read the Mary Magdalene, or it's not called Mary Magdalene, when I read the Magdalene manuscript, which is one of the last, like, I guess, books that I was guided to, the only book that I've read really in the last 5 years. So in that book, I remember there was a similar thing about the couple who I think like channeled the material. They also had stories that when they told the story, it was like, boom, it like hit me really deep and hard, because I was like, oh my God, that's us. That's our function as well. Like, sharing our story, being leaders. And leaders doesn't necessarily look like how we think it looks. Leadership is really just about how you live your life. And if you're authentic, if you're free, then you're a leader. If you're in love, you're a leader. You know, you're a leader of new paradigm energies, basically. Divine sight. It's like legit sisterhood for reals. So, yeah, and then it's like a constellation. It's like a star system. And the different star systems on the planet are being activated to embed the new energy grid. Grid is a bit of a harsh word for what the energy systems are actually looking like, because there's no fixed grid any longer in these higher realms of divine manifestation on this planet. It's like fluid energy flow, and yet there is a circuit of energy in the way that it flows on the planet, and that's essentially what we're riding. That's why it's a flow. That's why it's kind of like, whoa, it's so different from, so different from the gridlock of the 3D construct of control. Because as we're like, as we continue to awaken and break free from that, we can't, it can't hook into us anymore. We can't, and also like on just a totally human level, leader of yourself only. Yes, exactly. That's knowing of the self. No external control, no external dogma. There is only the self, and then we reflect back the sovereignty of self in unity, which means we can't escape ourselves anymore. This awakening has to continue because it's divine, it's cosmic, it's like beyond the human mind, certainly, which is again part of the service. Right. So then on just a very basic human level, it just means that we feel better. So it's so weird and paradoxical, this stuff, because it's all we could get really complicated, which I'm sure some people listening to this are just like, oh, like brain freezes and frazzled electrical wiring and stuff, but like the thing is, in flow and in expanse and in love with your own heart space, especially the more you grow and the more you unite with other in that heart space as well, it's just like, it's so lovely and beautiful. And then we heal. And this is the direct experience that I'm having with so many of us, and recently specifically with someone I'm working with who's just again like a soulmate client, and he's like, oh, I'm shedding loads of weight, like not trying, just shedding loads of weight, coming off of pills for different ailments of past projection from old paradigm. And so like I'm not doing anything, but there's an awareness in other that he knows it's the higher self, and it's the higher self in connection that, you know, it's pretty powerful stuff, you guys, you know. Hey Joe, how are you, my friend? So basically healing en masse is taking place, awakening en masse is taking place. We are like, I want to say like embedding ourselves. We are becoming embedded in the knowing of the self, hence how we're having these quite clear, I would say, exchanges of like, holy shazbot, we are the one, like we are all one. And having people like Julie, like Divine Sight, like Jess, like these people that are all navigating, there's just such a resonance. It's like, how is this possible? You know, we didn't learn this in a textbook. We didn't learn this at school. We don't fucking know each other according to this 3D paradigm, yet we do. The familiarity is visceral, it's soulful, it's embodied, right? It's in the field of our awareness that like, there isn't it. You guys, Divine Sight came up with a new word, resonations, which I obviously fucking love. Oh, I know you. And that's like, Heath, another friend that I met earlier this year, is the same. Like, came across the videos, was like, whoa. I remember he said something like he saw a video on a YouTube where I like walked or something. It was just like, got that feeling, right? Of like, I know that person. Of course, when we met in person, it was the same for me. I was like, we just know each other, right? We just recognize the resonance of hot love, which unity, new paradigm, a deeper empathic understanding of what we're talking about here, which again is an abstraction from a 3D construct of programming. There is a few leaps you have to make in the mental capacity to abstract out of that projection, out of the attachment to that projection, right? So hence why it's so divine, because there's a whole bunch of crazy stuff that has to happen inside the self to then be having these conversations in a tangible, understood, like functional way that helps us and assists us on our journey. Again, we want it to feel good, not pleasure-seeking feel good, not temptation, lustful feel good, but but a unified, grounded, yeah, like coming back to balance, coming back to self, right? And then I get that about the pleasure seeking stuff, because that's a trigger point for a lot of us, in as far as letting go of a lot of the icky stuff around connection as well. So we find connection, and then potentially we have to rebound back to all the, and this is what I was sort of saying earlier, but the collective agreements around pockets of people, like all men are blah blah blah, right? Like, who needs that? Because it's not true. It's just not true. So why do we do that? Because we're programmed. Because we grow up hearing our parents, our mothers, our fathers sitting around talking shit about one another and pretending as if we know what we're talking about. But we don't, because we just got programmed to believe all this shit for fun, for our own soul's growth. At least we're working it out. At least we're putting the puzzles together, being like, oh my God, I'm so crazy. I know, I feel like that as well. I mean, I have, in essence, we all have, right? Alena shared, I will never forget, because it was one of those kind of cool, exciting moments. I obviously been doing this YouTube channel since like 2012, and then committed since 2014. I joked about this being like the slowest growing YouTube channel on YouTube. And Alena shared a video back in September, and it was one of those crazy moments where it was, out of nowhere, I had like 80, I woke up, I had like 80 emails, and then I checked the emails, and it was like all these new subscribers, and I was just like, what the fuck is happening? What's going on? And then I think I was doing a live share, and somebody in my live share was like, oh, Alena Ash 9D shared a video, and I'm like, who is this person? Who is Alena Ash? I didn't even know. So yeah, she found a video of mine, which I'm pretty sure is one of my, if not the highest viewed video on my channel. It's called The Event. And yeah, I found a bunch of you guys through her. And then, so that gave me quite a nice boost. And then again in March, I think. So she basically helped, she bumped my subscribership up to about like up 1,000. Plus, basically via Alena, I've been able to expand this community and make the leap into purely online entrepreneurship, which was always the intent for publishing the book and creating All to Love, was freedom. Freedom. Not having to be based in one place, being able to travel around the world and have money supporting me, obviously, because we still live in this economy. So, and yet here's the weirdest polarity of it. It's like, same with the physical manifestation of the form, where once you get there, it's, you don't care about it, if that makes, I don't know, it's weird, it's paradoxical, because you're not, I'm gonna have to noodle with that to be able to describe it better. But it's like thinking when you get to that point, then you're gonna be there, but by the time you get there, you're already on to the next. So I'm already more like en flow in as far as like the next creation and the next, you know, like where to go next, where all the stuff that I thought I was chasing, none of it's relevant anymore. Like I don't, you know, targets and goals and, you know, financial law. I'm just like, that just has no, I'm like, who, like, it's because, yes, somebody, yes, I think it was CCC, because there's only the moment. And, or it's, yeah, it's the journey. And there's only this moment. And so like, and it's in this moment that all the juice is, that all the like power is, right? So it's, yeah, it's just being in this moment basically. And then sharing that love and that insight. No end. I know. It's so glorious. Thine is the kingdom. It's so juicelicious. Oh man. I had a funny sexual innuendo come into my mind about juicelicious and making me want to come. It's been a while. It's been a while. So, that's okay. Shh. No. Okay. I'm gonna have to cut this short. I don't want to talk about Molly's sex life, okay? Oh, okay, so I'm whispering, one, because I'm talking about personal stuff that I don't want to talk about. I'm getting embarrassed, basically. But also, it's early in a long while, I know, and or it's been triggered, and then all this other shit has come up where I'm like, never again. Never again. But that's not true, because it's all about the next phase, which is like sex magic. Because Magdalene manuscript, right? I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have to like understand sexual power hardcore, which, yeah, understanding sexual power, because that's going to be a big piece for upleveling the humanity, reframing our understanding of our sexuality, but also navigating via divine partnership, which is also like, but it's beautiful, because that's what the Magdalene manuscript is about. It's the cause, the light body. It's how sex and light body is connected, and why in the system of control there's so much shame around the body, because if everybody's ashamed of their body, then they're not using their sex power properly, and then we all just fuck each other, which means we're actually abusing one another with the body, which is all part of this whole awakening stuff. And many of us know this, is that these veils start to get lifted. Part of the healing is actually healing those cords, healing the serpent energy within, which is greater, which is coming into balance, of course, right? I'm embarrassed. Oh yeah. So the reason I'm also whispering is because, like, where I'm staying, there's people basically in the room next door. So I'm trying to be respectful and not just like gabble blab on for England, like make a loud, or they're just like, what the fuck? Could you imagine staying at an Airbnb and being like, what is she up doing stuff at 3 in the morning? Ooh, really? I'm curious about that now. I love the power here, and that's something else I've had with one of you regulars. It's like we're stepping into like more instantaneous manifestation, and instantaneous healing as well. Now, I know. Never in my whole life. That's the weirdest thing. I don't see myself as somebody that's had that kind of energy, and yet my heart and intuition is guiding me to do this kind of work and like have to talk about like sex and stuff, and I'm just like, huh? But like, whatever, I'm safe and protected, so it's fine. You know, this is like the whole life. I'm like never in what is this? Like, who am I? I don't even know anymore. But I do know, like deep down inside, I'm like, oh yeah, ha ha. Because if we weren't here, we'd mostly be dead, probably. Because every other incarnation, it was that. The thing about the star beings, I don't know why this is coming through, it might be relevant to some of you. The thing you need to understand about with star beings is that for a lot of us, we'd go back to a different star system, or even go back to source to reset the soul, as it were, before reincarnating. And part of the earthlings entrapment cycle and the veiling of the depth is that a lot of them haven't had the opportunity to reset due to the darkness, their soul's awareness, you could say, and it's just divine. It is all divine. Everyone is a miraculous being of light, and so there's no hierarchy in that regard. It's simply awareness, and it's one and the same. It's part of our journey as well. This is part of our choosing to hold in benevolence and grace in our divinity, that oneness with all of earthling, all of humanity, and so that's a polarized aspect of creation, right? So yeah, I'm hearing they simply haven't come into the recognition yet, but they're coming into it. Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah. So I just know this for my own self, is that I would go back, certainly after the last incarnation, roughly 500 years ago at the time of the Inquisition. The torture that I experienced was so fucking brutal that I had to reset for this incarnation. And that's part of, in my awareness as well, why my mother almost died when I came into her beingness. It sort of shocked her system, and yet all of it is the blueprint, and yet she's one of this collective as well, and so her beingness had the knowing of how to withstand the light. And yet part of the entrapment of the reincarnation grid is that souls got lost in it. As part of our function, some of you, we've addressed this, some of you in your psychic intuitive abilities, is that you're a light beam for lost souls, the souls that die in shock, or in kind of, shocking tragedy and that sort of thing. When the soul leaves, there's a lot of confusion, chaos, and fear. And so they look for lights, and those connected to the multidimensionality of their beingness can hold space for those souls to transcend and go into higher realms, so that they can also heal and reclaim their own divinity. It's whether they're doing it here in the earth realm, in their presence and body, like physical body or not, doesn't really matter, because it's all happening as one anyway, in the container of the totality, moving earth into that quantum manifestation field, and the new earth, new paradigm. It's already there, it's already here, here now. But it's only the perpetual rippling and the leaping of consciousnesses that are helping us anchor in the perception of this new reality. So we're awakening to the deeper understanding and then embodying it in truth. Ooh, this is very, very, very exciting stuff, you guys. So yeah, we're choosing love, and that's fantastic. We'll be feeling better. Be mindful of dogma, anything rigid, anything that feels being hard on you, anything limited, anything like you're blah, 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 anything that feels ick. Be aware that we're clearing it, that this stuff is all coming up through us for the release of it, because the release through us is the release for all, ultimately, right? Very, very exciting, right? Tree hugger, isn't that why they named planet Uranus? God, I love you guys. Okay, I think that's it, you guys. So yeah, I'm gonna crack on to do, I've only done, I think, 2 or 3 monthly, I'm heading into August, reports for the intuitive readings. I really appreciate your guys' bookings for those. It's helping me a lot, and it's fun. And it works. The people booking are really resonating with them, and I'm a little bit blown away, but not, because it's all like love. And so I'm like, thank you, universe, for showing me what I'm meant to do. In this phase now, as well as in the here now. Hi, this is here now, so this is what I'm meant to be doing, right? Oh, Pisces. Collective shifts via collective agreement. So that's what we're breaking down. We're breaking down collective belief systems, usually around self-worth, money, hence our divine heritage, our divine right, and our divine birthright to be in love with self and other. our divine counterparts coming together. Ooh, that freaks me out. But be in truth and be in service and be in love and humility and trust. It's weird, eh? Like it's clearly triggering still stuff that needs to come up for me because I'm like, eh. But it also makes sense energetically that our communities are coming together, our collaborative energies are coming together, our creative energies are together, and then our divine counterparts, holy relationships, which are for now the long haul, the longevity of our life plan, right? Oh, night night, Julie, and lots of love, Lukey. Oh, thank you so much for being here, Julie, and bringing Luke along. That's been such I don't know, it just made me feel all tingly and warm inside. Have a lovely sleep, Luke, and everybody else have a lovely, lovely day. Divine sight for the right one, yeah. This is how it's got to be, right? It's like it's only extending love. There's no limitation. Hence, we're clearing all those blocks to like our past limitation of relationship and our past icky constructs around men, women, or sex or relationship, where the fuck it's meant to be. And now we are just the whole self. And so the whole self can only attract in other whole selves, which means there's only a if not a bit of a whatever that means. Icky is just the healing, and then we're stepping into these new timelines, essentially. Yep, for shizzles, manuzzles. Hey, Rochelle. That's okay. And I think we'll ebb and flow because it's true that, all the stuff that we go through, whether in union or in sovereignty, i.e. like on our own and single or in partnership, we still have to go through all of this crazy energy stuff, whether we're in a relationship or not. And again, it's only our weird Disney programming that really like glamorizes the idea of relationship. Like, in fairness, it's just more work. But in divine service and ultimately in a greater sense of like ooey gooey hot love vibrashe and juicy plasma come light body activation. Guys, think about Jesus and Mary Magdalene. It's like Neo and that girl from The Matrix having sweet lovemaking sesh for like 25 hours. That activates the ka. That creates the light body, which is, in essence, according to Magdalene, that's how he transcended and has been the messenger. Like, she helped. Well, in fact, I'm pretty sure Magdalene was also an ascended master, right? So, but of course, the patriarchy would have us think that only men have the ability. Anywho, we are all one, and we are all precious gifts of divine universal light force. So let us embody the Jedi within and continue to shed the shame and guilt of past projection and let go of rebel energy and just be in loving union with all that you are. Hey, karamana chia, be the change. I love you guys. Have a great day. Peace.